back to our show, 184 Days Teaching Truth. I'm Carrie.
I'm Christy, and today we have a returning guest. Dr. Mills is back. Yay! We're so excited to have her back. We're going to be talking today about administration and community, both students and parents. So we're super glad to have you back.
And before we get started, could I wish all the teachers out there a very happy National Teacher Appreciation Day, May 7th. What a day to have a show.
Yes, I ate a delicious sandwich today. Thank you to our administration for purchasing that. It was yummy.
Yeah, I ate a crumble cookie yesterday.
Wait, 184 days and all you got was a sandwich.
So far, yeah.
Well, there's more to come. Stay tuned.
Yeah. Tomorrow, I think it's ice cream, but I'm lactose intolerant. So.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
I'll bring my own dessert, I guess.
Can we pull up slide 1, please?
We sure
John?
can.
Yeah, this is important. This is a very important picture we need to discuss. Okay. This is Dr. Mills on the roof of our previous school using a water cannon. And do you know anything about this picture, Dr. Mills?
I really don't. That could be my evil twin. I would never do anything like that.
Not sure if she's squirting students or teachers.
I do remember occasionally the kids would ask for me to throw the bucket of water over it. And they were chanting, bucket, bucket, bucket. And the teachers thought they were chanting something else. But I'll leave that to your imagination.
Yeah, the squirt gun is definitely a safer choice there.
Yes.
For sure.
Yeah.
Word and indeed, yeah.
So if you would like to stand on the roof of a school and shoot a water cannon or a bucket of water over the edge, you should become a school principal because a lot of fun things are waiting for you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Can we go to slide 2 for a moment? And I know that our producer is going to kill me for showing 2 slides in a row, but
No.
I can't help it. Okay. Thank you. I was talking about Aaron. Because he's not here, though the teacher's not here. Our teacher's not here, so we're kind of doing things our own way. So
yeah, going renegade now.
Okay, so scrolling through Instagram because that's some fine professional development there. Not during school, of course. Okay, so nobody go rat me out to anybody. I was at home on my own time, and I saw this really funny metaphor for teaching in May because that lovely piece of fabric is literally hanging by one tiny thread. Okay. So, I would like to know, and I have one. Do you know of anything in your current classroom or teaching life, or a funny story of back when something was literally hanging by a thread at the end of the school year?
Ooh, hanging by a thread. You got anything on that one, Dr. Mills?
I'm thinking.
Okay, I go. Can I go? I was trying to be polite and let other people go first, but really,
I'm trying to think about just threads.
Okay. So if you haven't been watching the show, then you don't know that I teach middle school, okay? Specifically 6th grade, which is basically the middle school version of kindergarten. I have over 200 students. I teach an intro to engineering class, super fun. I see my core students, my academic students every other day. So that can be a little challenging for 6th graders to manage multiple classes, and some of them, they only see that teacher every other day. So it's, getting to be the end of the school year, and every progress grade and quarter grade time, about a week before, I like to call the students over one-on-one conference, show me your notebook. Let's see what I have for grades, what's going on, positives, negatives, things like that. I call that yelling at them in a loving way. I'm like, whose turn is it to be yelled at? Get over here. Of course, they know I mean it with love because there are lots of compliments given as well. Anyway. So I was kind of reminding them, hey, I'm going to be calling you over to look at notebooks and stuff. And one of my little friends raises his hand and he's like, well, my notebook's at home. I'm like, okay, it's not the first time that I've heard this from people. Well, it went through the washer. I'm like, what do you mean it went through the washer? Like the washing machine? And I was like, what? Okay. Yeah, I forgot that I put it in this pocket. I usually put it in this other pocket. So then I washed my backpack and it went through the washer. And I'm like, okay. So it's gone. Well, I'm not sure because then I put it in the dryer to try to fix it. And that didn't really help. And I'm thinking, oh, as a mom, I'm thinking for the love. What does this poor woman's washer and dryer look like right now? So obviously that is now literally hanging by a thread, this notebook. And I'm like, go get like one of the last 10 pieces of paper I have left in this classroom and use it for your notebook today. I don't know what else to tell you. Yeah. But I did seriously sit there for like 30 seconds and I just, and you know how you blink a lot and you're just like, is this really happening? Is this what I went to college for, to listen to this? This is great. Anyway, so no notebook, but we have paper. All right. Did I give you guys time to think of anything literally hanging by a thread?
I didn't come up with anything.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. The thread thing just really, my people, one thread is not enough. I'm not gonna lie. They need a whole bucket.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of a mess. But it's okay. I mean, whatever. Do you have anything, Dr. Mills?
Not at the moment.
Okay. Well, if you think of it, you can interrupt me because my students do it all day and I'm completely used to it. Like I have two brains, the one that goes off track when people interrupt me and the one that stays focused. So we are good. Okay. So let's get into our show. And here's our question. Okay. And this is a legitimate question because I know how overwhelmed I have felt this year with having so many students, right? And making connections. And that's been one of my, I guess, biggest negatives going to middle school. I feel like there's a lot of missed opportunity for connection having so many students. So how, as a principal, do you make connections with students when you every single year have hundreds of students?
Well, the same goes for the relationships that you build with teachers. You're going to build relationships with students. And it's really a challenge to learn all of their names. But it's important to really try. You're not going to get 100%. And it has been known sometimes a kid in the lunchroom would say, "Do you know my name?" And I would somehow distract the kid, run into the office, pull the yearbook, look through the yearbook, come running back and say, "Jacob, what was your question again?" And I'd be let off the hook. But learning their names, building relationships with kids, when they know that you care about them, they're going to be way more likely to comply with the things that we want them to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just the same thing. You have to build trust and relationships with everyone. And don't forget, too, that the kids are our clientele.
Mm-hmm.
They give us job security.
Right.
And so it's important that we keep as many of them in our school as we possibly can.
I remember this one time where you had all of us, I think it was a staff development day, and you had posters of the names of all the students in the school. And we had to go around with little dots. And we would put a dot if we knew their name, if we knew another dot, if we knew something about them. And we went through all of the lists of all the kids, kindergarten through 5th grade, to see how many of our kids we knew well and which kids we didn't know at all.
And the third dot was if we knew something about the family as well. And what was great about that is right after the dot exercise, if you remember, we got together in grade levels to see, what about the invisible kids that didn't have very many dots?
Mm-hmm.
What are we going to do to build relationships with them? And it was very touching to see that transpire.
Well, and I remember thinking to myself, wow, I didn't realize how many of these kids we collectively didn't know. And so I know I made a concerted effort to be able to know their names and find out who they are and a little bit about them. John, did you have something to say?
Yes, when I was in school, I didn't want the principal to know my name.
Right. I know.
Those were different times, man.
Yeah,
Different
yeah.
times.
Now they just love the attention and the shout outs. But I think too, and maybe back in the day, it was having that relationship or connection or to be known by the principal was a negative. But I feel like principals through the years have tried to change their image and be known more as not the boss, but I'm just here working alongside your teachers, alongside your parents. I'm kind of the organizer and the manager of all of this chaos, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that the admin, lots of times they do want to know the students, who they are, family, siblings, all those things. So I know one strategy we had at our previous school would be morning opening, right? So do we want to talk a little bit about that?
I do. And you know, I do also understand that COVID changed our world. But prior to COVID, morning opening was a celebration that we had every single day. And the idea was that the kids would go into school on a high note, happy, positive. Teachers would be out there high-fiving the kids, greeting the kids. We would have music, we would dance, we'd tell jokes, things like that, and do the morning opening. And, you know, that moment of patriotism as well, love of country, where we would pledge allegiance as a family. But what I loved about morning opening in particular is we would invite the parents. And this would be an opportunity for the parents to kind of interact with the teachers on more of an informal basis. And it was just great. It just was like a family getting together. And that was one of my favorite things to do. And every day we would do that. Unfortunately, COVID changed all that, but I'm hoping that it's coming back with a vengeance, because it was really a worthwhile thing to do. And I know many schools do morning opening. Sometimes they do it just once a week. But I used to love the idea of every single morning. That is how we started. We entered to music. We went on our way to class to music, and it was just a positive, upbeat moment in time. Oh, and we also did our mission statement. So every kid knew our mission statement and our vision statement.
When I remember in talking to the parents after COVID, where they said, you know, we really hope that returns. It was one of the things that the parents said they missed the most about being a part of something that happens daily within the school. Some of them, it might have been 5 minutes before they had to go to work, but that was their contribution to show their child that they cared about their education. And so they showed up for that. And so I think for a lot of parents that was something that they also really loved, and were sad to see it go. So you're right. I do hope that parents can be more involved in, even if it's just in a small way. We definitely need the parent population back in our schools.
Well, and it helped to cut the cord with kindergarten, because, you know, kindergarten parents wanted to follow their kids all the way into the classroom. And it was really good to do a kind of a kiss and go right there at morning opening, and to know they were in good hands and they were marching off happy. And kindergarten would lead the parade into the classrooms.
I think too, coming from like trying to think about it from the student's perspective, it was an opportunity for them to see their principal, right? Our manager, our leader, our organizer, and also almost every day hear your voice on some level. So they felt like they knew you too, because it's almost like you see somebody on TV every day and they're your friend, right? Like, I know that guy, I watch him all the time, I watch his show, right? So they see you and they felt like they knew you. And then like the fun, silly things that would happen, like the time that I got pranked by that student, I don't even remember exactly what it was, but it was some kind of prank to get me to go out in the middle of morning opening and say something into the microphone, which you wouldn't believe it, despise. Don't think because I'm on the show that I like attention or microphones or people looking at me in any way. Not true. Anyway, but it's just a fun way for parents to see teachers, admin in a very low key, mellow kind of situation, right? Except when it's cold and windy. I don't like it. I just want to go in. I would be like with my hood like this, like, oh my gosh, it's terrible. Then if you ever got behind kinder, at the beginning of the year when they're on their way in with their train of parents, and it's hot and I'm sweating, and I'm like, can we move this along? Can we move this along?
I'm surprised you did not just push the parents out of the way.
I would be like,
coming through.
No. My students got really good at
driving through traffic.
Be polite, but let's go. We got places to be. But anyway, I just think it's a great way for an admin to be present and visible on a consistent basis. Not just at the fun events, not just when they're coming in to evaluate the teacher, right? You're there every single day in the trenches, in the wind, in the heat, in the cold, during, we're exhausted times, we're excited times, like whatever, right?
One of my favorite things was the jokes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
can't forget the jokes on Friday. Like
Yes.
those were so much fun, and you would take like suggestions from the students, and they were so thrilled to give you some of their favorite jokes.
So why did the biology teacher break up with the physics teacher? Because they had no chemistry.
Oh, that's so good. But also parents love to film all those things. Like if they're, because the students would run morning openings, so there were like 5 different things that we had to say, and the teachers would model it the first week, and then we would start with 5th grade, and they would go a week, and then all through even into the 1st grade. And it was cool because the parents would, like, you could tell they were running late to work or whatever. They got permission to come in late so that they could get video of their child doing that. And it's a way for their child to be successful in front of the parent. And to them, it's a really big deal.
Yeah.
That's like, I can see them putting it on social media. That's my baby saying the pledge or whatever, reading that little card, And then you see like primary teachers like, please read it. Please read it. Please read it. Especially, when they get nervous and stuff, the kids. It was so funny. But there was always somebody to step in and help or do whatever. So that was cool.
But it made community
Yes.
out of individual classrooms. We all came together, and that was how we started our day. I think that really says a lot about a school when everyone gets together, everyone participates in something common, and so there's a bonding time there that you don't have when you just like have kids walk in the gates and just go straight to their rooms.
Yeah.
You only have a classroom community. You don't have a school community.
I was going to bring up a game that we played, but I'm going to move it along. Okay. So let's talk about, do you want to talk about setting boundaries with students to let it be known that there are certain, areas that we can't cross, or we want to talk about authentic learning?
Okay, well, we'll talk about boundaries first.
Okay.
Kids love boundaries. They'll never admit that, but they do love to feel safe. And boundaries do that. And so in the classroom, there's classroom expectations. In the school, we have school-wide expectations that we came together to decide, and we would post those expectations. And once you have those, the kids are going to test those boundaries to see, are they going to hold firm? And if we're all on the same page, they do hold firm, and they know, hey, we're not going to cross that line. This is the way we do business here at this school. And I've found that rarely do you have to lose control with a kid. We're all human, and that happens. But, keeping control of yourself is vitally important, when you're talking with a child, because they love to push buttons. It's almost like they have a remote control. The most engaging thing for a kid is to watch their teacher lose their forever living mind, right? Just pressing the button, And so keeping control of yourself, and this is just the way it is. And so in conferences with the kids, I would have a magic sentence that would help them know that, okay, this is a boundary and this is the way it is, and I'm not going to be able to, manipulate my way out of this. The magic sentence is this: we will try again tomorrow. And so they knew that tomorrow was a clean slate, but they also knew the consequences of whatever happened is going to happen. That was a consistent boundary. It was important that held. And so that's important. The other thing is support. So if a child does misbehave, a teacher will send a child to the office when they're on their last nerve, and oh my word, we had better respond.
Yes.
Because that is important. For the most part, teachers don't willy-nilly just send kids to the office, that there is a really good reason. And so it's important to show support for that teacher. They just may need a minute,
Yes.
But whatever that is. And I've learned too that it's also important that while it's not it's not mandatory, but it's important that you share with the teacher what happened to the child. You know, whether they were sent home, whether a parent was called, whether they had a minute, you know, with the counselor, whether they were, whatever consequence was issued. It's important that you let the teacher know that. Because if you don't, the assumption is nothing happened.
Right.
Right.
And many times teachers feel that way if principals don't communicate with them, that they feel like, well, they just got away with it. There really was no consequence for that child. And teachers then feel like they, you know, are not being supported. And so it's important for you to say that as an administrator, that, you know, not only is there a consequence that need to be followed up with by the administrator, but then the teacher also needs to be informed so that they feel that support and that the child has an understanding that the administration and the teacher are working together as a team. So, yeah, that's a big
and
deal.
they were heard.
Yes.
You know, in a conference with a child, that's what they want too. They want to be heard.
Yeah.
They want their side of the story, and it's important that we listen to their side of the story. And, you know, get all the pieces in place before we make those decisions.
Absolutely.
And I found that as you build relationships, you know, because that call to parents now is going to happen, right? 9 times out of 10. And if you've built those positive relationships with the parents ahead of time, that call is not as adversarial as it could be if you didn't. And so it does become a win-win.
Absolutely. No doubt about that.
So speaking of that, this is just kind of laughing because a couple years ago, I had a very interesting group of 5th graders. Love them dearly. But that year was the first time I had to talk to a parent on the first day of school. But that child had siblings that had gone to this school. This child had gone to that school for years. So the family already knew the school. They knew what we were about. So it was my first time ever talking to them, mom, right? But I had to talk to her because we had a fan in our room because it was hot. And the child said something very inappropriate into the fan. Okay, and everybody heard it. He said 2 times. So I had to tell mom. But she was very receptive to the information that I was giving her and was mortified, but we were able to take care of it, you know? And I think because we had that positive relationship built in as a school community, she didn't know me yet, right? I hadn't taught any of her other children before. She was okay with it and like, okay, let me talk to my child. We're definitely going to do better from here on in. It was still an interesting year. I'm not going to lie. He had some fun pranks up his sleeve, which we will talk about another time. I met my match. I'm just going to say that. But because we had that, we were able to, the mom and I and the student were able to move on from that moment. And it didn't end up being, you know, a big thing or whatever. So yes, I agree with that. Okay. Should we talk about authentic learning or should we take a break? How are we feeling?
Why don't we take a break? And when we come back, we'll dive into some authentic learning. This is 184 Days Teaching Truths. We'll be right back.
Okay, we're back. 184 Days Teaching Truths. We're going to talk about authentic learning and parents.
And we have a special guest today. Dr. Mills is back for round 2. So we're so happy to have you. And so when it comes to authentic learning, what are the must-haves?
Well, the must-haves is that kids can see the relevance of why they're learning whatever it is the teacher is presenting to them. And authentic learning is real-world applications. It's useful. It's things that float the boat, if you will. And so, very often, out there, you may have the same problem that I have. I memorized the quadratic equation in mathematics, but I have no idea what it does. And so, to me, it's not relevant. And so authentic learning is things that the kids really can see the purpose and purposefully planned lessons. So, for example, I remember a time we were struggling because we had a new building at our school, and our whole fire drill changed. And so Miss Allard actually said, you know what, we're going to solve this problem. We're going to make this a learning activity. And she developed with her kids a very sensible approach to how we were going to exit the building safely. Did a map, did the whole 9 yards. That was authentic learning. I find the STEM disciplines are authentic learning. Mm-hmm. These are things that kids are going to use in the workplace down the road. And so, I always shared, you plan as if you're on the other side of the desk, as if you are in place of the kids. And so if I was a kid, what would that lesson look like? And how do you make it engaging and meaningful? I always remember there's a scene in Dead Poets Society. I know that's an old movie from way back when, but I really recommend it, where, he gets on the table, stands on the table, and he says, "Captain, my captain." And all the kids were so inspired with poetry of all things, but they were so inspired, they jumped on the table, "Captain, my captain." And so the first law of teaching is inspiration. And with authentic learning, it does that. It inspires the kids to want to learn more. Mm-hmm. And so, share some examples of authentic learning that you've been so successful.
Well, where do I begin?
Well, you are the STEM strategist. That's where you start.
So I want to go back to the fire drill lesson, actually. So those were third graders. But thinking about having that connection between admin and students, right? The students knowing that Dr. Mills had, she was supportive of what we were doing. That was our plan. She was on board with it. I think you even helped get us clipboards or something, right?
Yep.
And we did like a practice drill, and they were timing people as they were coming out, and they had their little clipboards and they were taking notes. And we went back and tweaked the plan based on some of the observations we had, the data with how long it took. All standards-based people as well. Don't worry, I stay in my lane, okay? And then the students actually presented their plan at, what was that meeting after school where we had everybody there? And all the names always change, but it wasn't SOT, but the same idea, right? Mm-hmm. So the students had to get permission from their parents to come to the meeting after school, present their plan. And again, these are third graders, and some of them were still learning English, right? So the English was not their first language. So they are also communicating with all of these adults, teachers, their plan, which was approved, by the way. But for them, just knowing as a school community, people were on their side. People saw what we saw, right? The crisscross paths, the inefficient fire drill, and believed in them to come up with a plan. That is so incredible. They had buy-in. And I can tell you that every fire drill from then on in that year was so exciting, because we're like, how do you think we did? What was the timing like, right? Because usually they're annoying because they disrupt our learning.
Yes.
But that was part of our learning that year.
And the firemen don't come anymore, which is disruptive to the teachers.
I know. As we talked about last time.
Boy, if those firemen would just come back and make it so much better.
Okay, so I want to talk a little bit more about authentic learning. We could do a whole show on that.
Oh,
yeah,
wait.
John, yeah.
I don't know if you would consider this authentic learning, but there's a lot of schools and school boards, I guess, that let's get rid of art, let's get rid of music, let's get rid of all of these other activities other than just reading, writing, and arithmetic. But my experience, you know, which goes back when we had the stone tablets, was those kind of things made the other stuff more important. In other words, in woodshop, if you didn't know math, you know, you were lost. And music, I mean, music is pure math.
Yes.
So what are your, I mean, is that correct? Is that something that you feel like that's an important part of education?
I think many kids come to school because of those things. I think that that's where their passion lies. And if we remove the things that bring kids joy in coming to school, what's the incentive, right? Because not all children are going to be great, academics. They have other talents. And if we don't grow those talents, we're missing out on that entire population of students and getting them to want to be there. So,
and I love that question, because the specials, we call art, music, PE, library, the specials, humanities, is the heartbeat of the school. And so these are the things that when they leave school, they're going to enjoy.
yes.
And so we should not stamp that out now. We should encourage it. And again, when we talk about authentic learning, putting those disciplines in and integrating them into the academics gives the kids the motivation and the incentives,
Absolutely.
you know, as Christy said, to want to come to school.
Well, if you like going to plays, you know, as an adult, or concerts or things like that, if we're not teaching that in school and inspiring the kids to head in that direction, those things are going to disappear.
Yeah. And I think sometimes that narrow perspective, because we want those test scores to be better, and that's our main focus, is we want kids to have these great test scores. But in life,
0 stars.
Where's that test score going to help you in the game of life? Do you care that much about your high test score versus like understanding mathematics via the arts, right? Or being able to use and apply your math for things that you make?
Well, all the tests do is teach kids to memorize things. And that doesn't mean that they're learning just because they memorize a date or a specific activity in history. That doesn't mean that they've learned the meaning behind that.
Yeah,
It's you're teaching kids just to pass tests.
Right. And we think, if we think about all the jobs that are out there that require things like math and, reading, and there's no test for those when you apply for that job. There's just an expectation that you can do that. Right. I remember we were talking about like the authentic learning, and I remember I had a first grade group, and we noticed that the playground had maybe a little bit too much trash on it, and there was only 2 custodians for the entire school, and it's a really big job for a custodian to manage all of the different aspects of cleaning a school throughout the day. And so I posed to the kids, I go, well, what if we made something that would help, our custodial staff? What could we make? And they said, we can make a robot. Right now, of course, granted, first graders not going to make real robots. They're going to make, pretend robots. But the idea being that they needed to have something like a broom. They needed to have maybe a sponge or a straw, something to suck up, And so they created and designed and created these little robots that had all of these different parts. And then they would tell you like, okay, so the straw is like the vacuum and this part's like the broom. And it was really cool for them to like take ownership of that type of learning. And they had to know, like, if the straw was too long, there went the robot, like dipped over, right? So there was a lot of math involved with that, but a lot of creativity too. Like how am I going to best display this? Or maybe they had a different like different material that the other kids didn't think of, and they're like, no, you use this and it soaks this up. Or there was really creative like thinking for the children to solve a problem, and it was a real world problem at our school.
Well,
Yeah.
and that's teaching them problem solving, right?
Yes.
And that's what we all need.
Yeah. I had a student once ask me, why do kids have to go to school? And it was a bait. I knew that it was a middle schooler. Surprising, right? And I said, so that you can learn how to solve problems. And she looked at me and she goes, you're the first teacher that's ever said that. I said, well, that's the whole idea, is you learn how to solve problems, and you do that through learning how to read, write, do math, have, some other background in the arts, so that you can put it all together when you're an adult and solve problems. But I think a lot of kids don't see school that way, because we're not proposing that that's the reason why you're there.
So I think, too, going back to John's question and authentic learning, right? It's a way to the arts and those electives, as they say in middle school, right? The non-core subjects, what they mean is non-tested. It's a way to actually apply the learning in those academic core subjects in a problem-solving, creative, integrated kind of way.
For sure.
So we absolutely cannot take those things away. In fact, we should be using them more in our everyday classes and collaborating with specialists in those areas on ways to integrate more often, because those are the things that increase attendance, get kids to school. Also, it's super cool when you're doing something awesome in your class and you invite your admin down, right? The kids get to see and show off, see their principal, right? Show off the cool things that they're doing, but it's very real. It's not a dog and pony show. It's a little bit of organized chaos, but it's impacting the school, the kids, the school community. There's nothing better than inviting people in to see that kind of thing.
And it enriches the quality of education.
Absolutely.
Yes,
It's
that.
all about this.
That right there. So thinking about, too, compliance, like kids, why do we have to come to school? Thinking about teachers. Why do we have 3 required nights in our contract that I have to be there in the evening when I'm already working so hard during the week? We talked about 54 hours, right? Okay. So I have issues doing things just because I'm told to do them. Okay. I do follow rules, but I may chirp a lot along the way. So, and I get a little grumpy because I get tired by the end of the week, living life, whatever, working mom, this and that. So our school, where I was from before, we had a fall festival. It was part of the tradition, right? And it was always like later in the week, like Thursday, Friday. Well, by Friday, I'm in teacher coma by 7 p.m. Okay. Don't talk to me because I'm exhausted. I'm already dead asleep. And so it felt like I was like exhausted, like bringing myself to this event, right? And I kind of had this epiphany, like, why am I doing this for the kids? Like, why aren't I involving the students in this? Like, what's the buy-in for me? What's the buy-in for them, other than they get to go play games and get free candy or whatever, right? But it seems silly to me that a place that provides education, and we should be integrating and providing authentic experiences, age appropriate, obviously, but simulate the real world. Why am I like just doing this for them? Like the little fishing game or whatever, like those are fun, right? But how can I involve them in it? So then this was a time when slime kind of came back a few years ago, like the big thing. And it was like YouTube Kids, I think, kind of just came out. So those two worlds collided and boom, right? So I'm like, okay, there's always a budget crisis, right? In every school, every grade level, because you try to like make money. You're always hustling or slinging something, trying buy this so you can get money in your grade level funds. So why not include the kids in this budget crisis of 3rd grade and start a slime company? But I don't tell them we're doing it. Like I lead them to this, like they analyze the data, how much money we have in our account versus all the things we're hoping to buy. And they see there's a deficit. Oh my goodness. How can we help? Oh man, what can we do? We could sell something. So, of course, through the brainstorming process, we start to narrow down, we could make something, but what's the hot item that would be something we could make? It wouldn't cost too much because we have to buy the supplies. And remember, we don't have a lot of money, or we would look for donations. And of course, slime was brought up. And then for the next 3 or 4 years, we actually started a slime company in 3rd grade, and there would be hundreds of containers of varying qualities of slime for sale during fall festivals. Some of it was sticky and leaky. Some of it was beautifully and professionally done, but the kids actually made it in class, and it wasn't complete chaos. Like, we had a whole structured series of, steps we went through for different things. And we actually collected data on how much we sold, which was the most popular, how much money did we make, did we close the gap on our deficit, things like that. But then because I'm a selfish human being, could not wait until fall festival, because I was in competition with all the other 3rd grade teachers so that I could sell more slime than them, because my slime was better, right? But seriously, like, it was complete buy-in, and the kids could not wait to get there. And they're like, I'm going to give up some of my time at fall festival playing games, and I want to sell. I want to get behind that counter, which is just a lunchroom table, but whatever. But it felt very, very real. But that's how you can integrate, right? The arts and all these other things into a really cool, authentic experience, which was very real to us, right? And it gets you into one of your required nights. So only 2 to go after that. Okay. Yeah. That's
And
my
it
thing.
changes perspectives too.
Yes.
You had a total change of perspective.
Yes.
And, now from dreading it to loving it.
Mm-hmm.
And to bring the community in this way is essential. Yes, we are tired, and we might dread that night, but afterwards we feel on top of the world, because we've had such a good turnout, and standing room only. The parents will rise to the occasion and come into school. And so these are the things that build community within a school. The school is a hub for the community. And we are stewards for the taxpayer. It's not our school, it's the taxpayer's school. And so we have to do the very best we can and allow the community to feel that indeed that we are doing a good job with the money that they put in so faithfully into taxes. So
well, yeah, I actually never thought about it that way. That's actually really interesting. That we do need to create it in a way that we're only there for a short time. And it may seem like when we're there for 10 years, right? And that we should paint our name on our parking spot, but we're really only borrowing it. And we're only a guest there for that period of time. And we want to leave that legacy, I guess, that we welcomed students and families. We valued their input. We made it a place where they wanted to visit and be. Yeah, there's rules with background checks and things like that. Now, we're not saying that should be lifted or whatever. We understand we need to make sure everybody's safe. But let's find a way to work side by side and partner and celebrate and make it a place where we want to be, right?
Yes.
Even if it is after school in the evening during those times. And actually, it's funny because I was researching for the show today on Edutopia. I was looking for some data, but I didn't get any. There were no numbers. But anyway, the article kind of started with the frustration that can happen like middle school, high school, secondary. And I did experience this as a teacher this year of something like that back to school night or open house where the parents are expected to visit all of their child's classes. And they have, 3 minutes of passing time, 7 minutes in each period. And yes, you're checking off a box, right? It's your required night as the teacher. The parents came to the school. We opened the school. They met the teacher. No, it's complete and utter chaos. Oftentimes, even in the article, it states the parents leave school feeling disoriented and uninspired because things went so quickly and it was just a whirlwind, right? I know from my experience as the teacher, I had maybe 5 minutes to hurry up and explain all of these things that I'm trying to explain. It was exhausting. And the whole night was a sea of faces. I could not even tell you who went and who didn't go. Right. So if we could change those kind of nights and go, what as a school community do we want? What would actually be better and more beneficial so that people do want to go to those things? And as the teacher and as a parent, I didn't even like them for my kids. I went to like one and I was like, are you kidding me right now? I know nothing. Right. This is exhausting. what can we do to make it a place that people want to be and get that feedback? Because I know some of the parents were disappointed, like they had to, move it along because some rooms they wanted to spend more time in.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think it's purposefully planning.
Mm-hmm.
We forget the parents in the equation and ask them, how would you like this to look? I remember one of the most meaningful things that happened with parents at my school was we did a campus walk. And we got a group of there had to have been about 10 parents. And I had a group of 5, and my assistant principal had a group of about 5, and we just walked the campus. And we wanted to know what they wanted the school to look like and feel like. And during that walk, relationships were built. We laughed and we joked, and it was a lot of fun. But as they walked, they were pointing out signage that was unwelcoming, that we just walk past every day and are totally oblivious to it. They found holes in the fence. They even noticed the speed of cars going through the school zone was just unacceptable.
Do they realize
foyer,
that some of them might have been doing that?
it could
Just
be.
saying.
In the foyer, that we had welcome, and it was very welcoming, but we only had it in English. And they pointed out some things. And then listening to parents and what they want, we changed many things. We took down that unwelcoming signage. We fixed the hole that was in the fence. But, the parents wanted a 4-way stop sign outside the school. And when the city came in to do their assessment of it, they put in a traffic light, not a 4-way stop, because it was that serious. But everything that the parents pointed out, we listened and we took action. You see, that's important.
Mm-hmm.
And the same way with an open house. Listen to the parents, see how they would want, plan from their perspective and what it's like to be a parent. And what information do you want? When you listen to parents, things happen.
Yeah.
And things get better. And
John.
this is a partnership.
So after the pandemic, did you guys find that maybe the parents might be a little more empathetic or understanding about what you go through after having the kids home and out of school and trying to teach them yourself or online? Or do you think that had an impact on many of the parents?
I think it did. It was like the teachers were then in a goldfish bowl so they could see what it was like in the classroom. And the homes were in a goldfish bowl as well. And I think, the teachers got, had that empathy to where the parents were coming from as well. It was a two-way thing. I think we learned a lot with COVID about that.
Well, it gave us a window as educators into, what the children were going through within any given day within their homes. So how loud it was in the background, or I don't know about you, but I heard my very fair share of smoke detectors that needed to have their batteries changed.
I was going to say that.
Right, because we would hear that, we'd have to have the children mute their sound because it'd be nonstop. And so you started to get a window into their world and started to understand where students were coming from and some of the, challenges that they left their home to come to school every day. They have their own challenges at home. They come to school. We provide them additional challenges, and kids are pretty resilient, but we expect a lot out of them. And so it was an eye opener for us as teachers to understand why some children are the way they are. Like, it really gave us a unique perspective, and I think the same for parents, that they may not have realized all of the different material that we need within any given day to teach what we have to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the different subject areas, and especially because we had never taught online before, that was not something that we were well versed in. I mean, we were learning it as we went. So and some teachers were better at it than others. Carrie here had like slideshows that could, rival professional. So they were pretty awesome. And but she spent an amazing amount of time doing that. Teachers were working 12, 14-hour days to come up with content because we just didn't have it. Right. So it was a unique time in teaching history. Definitely glad that I can say that I made it out the other end. Not all educators can say that.
I know.
So we
Peace
lived
out.
like I survived, COVID teaching should be a shirt they sell. But but I do think that gave us all a different understanding of what both kids come to school with parents, what they're dealing with when they had 3-4 kids, and you could see in the background, everybody's on their computer with the headphones.
Yes.
So yeah, it was a huge difference. But I think as educators, we were hoping that would, maintain, right? That parents would see the challenges that teachers have to go through too. So
Initially, I feel like they were very kind of in awe and grateful. And that it's like a honeymoon phase that lasted for a while, for that year. And then I do feel like things have kind of gone back almost, I feel like at times worse, just because things like, short videos or whatever, a recording of something can be taken out of context and we're not quite sure what is real and not real. And then the next thing you know, like, people are like, up in arms on social media saying this, and this about teachers when that is not true of all teachers, whatever that was that you saw or think you saw or whatever. So there's this whole, and which is why we kind of started the show, because this whole blanket statement of, oh, teachers always do this, or they always say this, or this is always happening. We felt like, okay, it's getting kind of ugly out there. And we need to do what we do best, which is inform and educate.
Yeah.
And let's try to talk about some of these things that we see. So that actually brings me to something Dr. Mills definitely has to get to. So when we have these amazing relationships with parents in this lovely school community, and we have these nights and we get their feedback and we make these changes, it's not a perfect world, right? Things go down sometimes, right? So how do you handle an angry parent, justified or not, right? That they're angry, but they come into school and they are just ready to battle.
So, it's a challenge. It's a challenge that you accept. And as I mentioned earlier, you can only control yourself. And so it's important that, the louder they get, the quieter you get. It's important that you do that. But I found something that was absolutely magical. If you can get the parent to agree 3 times, then they've calmed right down and you can continue with a reasonable and sensible conversation. So like, we could say something like, you've got an amazing young man there. Well, are they going to disagree with you? No, they're not. And so you look for 3 things, 3 commonalities, whatever it is, whatever comes to mind, it doesn't matter what, but 3 things, and they've calmed down to a point where now that de-escalation, they can think. Whereas if you try and have a conference with an escalated parent, you're wasting your time because they're not thinking. There's no reasoning that's going on. You have to get them down into that reasoning zone. And so I would find that to be a challenge, but it's fun. I know that going in. And it's
don't
like,
you love that she finds that fun?
Score if you get a hug at the end.
Bonus points.
And the office would know this. And so they'd watch going in and they'd watch coming out. And I would try and time the hug right in front of them. So when the parent goes, there's one.
Wow.
But we are on the same page and we do have the child's best interests at heart. And so there are so many commonalities that, it's easy to get 3 affirmations before you hit the hard stuff.
And I mean, and that's the thing too, like teachers, parents, admin, we're there for the kids. Like, that's our clientele. That's why we show up every day. We do want what's best for them, but we do come at it from different perspectives, right? The teacher, that child is one of many kids in a class, right? And the child, may or may not have siblings or whatever. It could be one of 4 kids or one of 2 kids or whatever at home. That child's one of 700 students, right? That you kind of manage as well. But we all want that child to be successful, whatever that looks like. So yes, I love that strategy for handling frustrated, angry parents. It's
good for teachers to use.
It
too,
is
by the way.
actually.
It's not just admin that could use.
Absolutely. No, I'm like
3 agree with me. We'll call it that.
Okay. So did we want to talk a little bit about
celebrations?
Okay.
Because, the flip side to having angry parents is having happy parents, right? And celebrating children and their successes throughout the year, right? So slide number 4. This would be the fabulous Dr. Mills having a shaking hand moment with someone who is being promoted to the next grade or receiving an award.
Dancing.
I think it's kinder. I think this was from kinder to first.
Yeah. A promotional shake, right? And how important that is, that the children understand the importance.
Parents love celebrations. Think about it. If you went to the NFL and nobody cheered, what would that be like?
Boring.
And sometimes in schools, we don't cheer enough. We don't celebrate enough.
Yeah.
And this is way more important than any NFL could be. And so finding things to authentically celebrate, academic achievement, sure, attendance, citizenship, whatever it could be, let's celebrate that. Because you're right, parents absolutely love to come into school to celebrate their kids and show their neighbors, that's my kid up there, and give them that moment, where we celebrate them. It's the insulin.
Yeah, for sure. And then children understand from their parents how important it is that school and the things that go on in school are to them for their child, right? So as parents, we get busy and we don't maybe always convey that, but those are the moments where kids understand that this is something really important for the family. So,
and you celebrate what you value. If you value kindness, then you're going to celebrate that.
For sure.
And that was something that we valued. And so, that was a special award. And to kind of go back to COVID, I remember after COVID, we had a special Parent as Teacher award, where parents got an award, for doing a good job online, helping their kid be there on time and whatnot. So, yes, but it's fun. And I think looking for ways to celebrate just keeps the energy alive.
For sure.
Just like the NFL, we need to cheer.
Right. And focusing more often on the positive. So when you do have to have those tough conversations, you have some positive in the bank, right?
Absolutely.
So that the parent is more likely to trust the school, staff, teacher, admin, whatever, when they do come to them and say, hey, there's an issue here that we need to talk about, right?
Yeah,
because it's not always negative. It's, hey, everybody makes mistakes. We're human. We have things to work on. And you come to school to make mistakes and do hard things.
Yeah.
And the parents are sending their very best kids to us. They're not keeping the good ones at home.
That is one of my favorite things that you always say. Yes, we needed that. That's right. All right. So we're getting ready to wrap it up here. So John, could you please show slide 3? All right. So being at school in April and May feels a lot like looking both ways before crossing the street and then getting hit by an airplane. So we are almost there, people. Even though it's Teacher Appreciation Week, you're probably dragging yourself towards that finish line, but hang in there. Teachers, parents, kids, we've got this. Keep bringing your best self every day.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for joining us today. 184 Days Teaching Truths. I'm Christy,
I'm Carrie.
and this was our special guest today, Dr. Mills. We want to thank you so much for being here. And school is out.
See ya.
Glorious, glorious.